I've been transported into a novel. I was the female lead childhood sweetheart, but I wasn't her hero. According to the plot, the hero and heroine were destined to meet, get to know each other, and fall in love. Naturally, the heroine would abandon me, the boyfriend who had been by her side for over a decade since we were kids. But after I completed my mission and made the painful choice to lose my memories, she was the one who woke up. I stood holding an umbrella, my hand gripping the handle tightly, silently watching the scene unfold before me. The guy was handsome and charming, the girl shy and innocent. They looked like a match made in heaven. They had eyes for no one else, only for the tears of understanding shared with the one they loved. They held each other in a tight embrace, as if trying to merge into one another, to never let go. The crowd around them cheered wildly, thrilled that this star-crossed couple had finally found their way to each other. I figured if I wasn't the boyfriend or the girl at the center of it all, I might have been in that crowd cheering for them too. I swear, Connor, I'll never let you leave me again. I love you. It's always been you. Khloe's voice, filled with the relief of someone who'd survived a disaster, was laced with so much heartache and adoration. Her friends around her were laughing and catcalling, even more excited than she was. I remembered when Khloe, blushing, had confessed her feelings for me. Everyone had been happy then, too, but not this ecstatic. The guy in front of her, his eyes slightly red, gave a trembling but firm nod. His gaze drifted and landed right on me, standing there holding my umbrella. He froze, his expression shifting, and I could have sworn I saw a flash of triumph in his eyes. Confused by his reaction, the crowd and Khloe turned and saw me. Khloe bit her lip, a rare look of guilt clouding her innocent face. The others, however, all looked away as if they couldn't bear to meet my eyes. Of course, how could the same people who were jokingly calling me their brother-in-law yesterday have the nerve to look at me today while they cheered for their friend finding someone new to love? The scene fell silent, the atmosphere thick with awkwardness. I had managed to turn a sweet confession scene into something that felt like I was catching her in the act. I imagined they were all silently blaming me for my terrible timing, for showing up at a moment like this. Of course, Khloe wasn't about to let the man she loved feel the slightest bit uncomfortable. She grabbed Connor's hand, lacing her fingers through his, and stared at me with determination. She didn't say a word, but her actions were more humiliating and painful than anything she could have said. I forced a stiff smile, even though Khloe had just publicly humiliated me. "Khloe, let's break up." After saying it, I turned and walked away, my feet crunching softly in the snow, step by step, with no one calling me back and no one wanting to. The air was cold, and it felt like my heart had frozen solid along with it. A traitorous tear escaped and fell, melting a tiny patch of the pristine snow. "Ethan," I thought mockingly, "a grown man, and you've ended up like this." The thought was laced with self-pity. The system in my head sighed. I bitterly began to recall everything that had happened since I arrived here. I have no idea how it happened, but 10 years ago, I was inexplicably transported into a novel. The book was a campus love story centered on the heroine, Khloe Davis, and the hero, Connor Hayes. And you might think I was lucky enough to be the hero, right? Wrong. I was cast as her childhood sweetheart, the familiar older boy from next door, a plot device meant to highlight Khloe's deep love for Connor. But I wasn't discouraged. The system that brought me here told me that as long as I completed my mission, I could go home. Plus, the system would grant me one wish. It was basically a real-life Aladdin's lamp. I figured I should just make the best of it, and I was already dreaming of becoming a multimillionaire. Besides, I was just a minor side character, so my tasks wouldn't be dangerous, probably just nudging the main plot along. So, I agreed, promising the system I'd complete the mission and then head home in glory. Then the system gave me a rundown of the book's general plot. The heroine, Khloe Davis, my neighbor and childhood friend, was innocent, sweet, loyal, and kind. The hero, Connor Hayes, was a classic tall, rich, and handsome type, aloof, and destined to transfer into our class during our sophomore year of high school. My mission was simply to get the two of them to fall in love. I thought it would be easy, but I never considered that matters of the heart are never truly under your control. When I got back to my house in this world, I felt like all the strength had been drained from my body. The house was filled with traces of my life with Khloe. A dress she tossed on the sofa, the doll she collected in the cabinet, the walk-in closet overflowing with her clothes. Even if you love the hero, how could you humiliate me like that? I covered my eyes and let the tears stream down my face unchecked. I had sensed it for a long time. Ever since she met the hero, Khloe's heart was no longer with me. But God, how I wanted her to give me back the girl she used to be. The passionate, innocent girl whose world revolved around Ethan. The system sighed again. I told you not to fall for the heroine. You regret it now, don't you? I blanked my mind, not wanting to deal with it. 10 years. I had been with Khloe for 10 whole years. Ever since I became her childhood friend, I had diligently carried out my mission. I went to school with her, agonized through puberty with her, fooled around with her like her personal shadow, Khloe's little sidekick that she could never shake. The system was always chirping in my ear. The heroine likes fish. The heroine hates math. The heroine loves badminton. The heroine dislikes guys who dress like they're trying too hard to be alternative. I'd heard it so much my ears were ringing. Why'd I need to know what the heroine likes? She's going to end up with the hero anyway. He can worry about all that. I complained to the system, asking helplessly. The system immediately launched into a lecture. You're currently playing her suitor, her childhood sweetheart. You're the one who's supposed to make the hero jealous. How can you not know her preferences? I figured it had a point, so I buckled down and memorized everything about the heroine. But then the system would always add an ill-timed warning. Whatever you do, don't fall in love with the heroine. I scoffed internally. I was an adult. How could I possibly fall for some kid, a fictional character, no less? But when you actually got to know her, you realized she wasn't just a character. She was a real person, a girl full of hope with a light in her eyes. She teased me for being her little shadow, pulled mean-spirited pranks, and even casually strolled by with her perfect score on a test when I'd bombed mine. Was she annoying? First, definitely. But this girl was real, with her own thoughts, her own dreams, and her own feelings. She would tease me, but she would also blush when she thought I wasn't looking and then get angry out of embarrassment if I caught her. When I played basketball, she'd cheer for me with everything she had, screaming her lungs out. Everyone envied me. On my birthday, she excitedly dragged me to see the fireworks. Her sparkling eyes focused only on me, and she earnestly promised to spend every single birthday with me. How could I not fall for her? When a vibrant girl with flushed cheeks looks at you with clear, earnest eyes and confesses her feelings with such conviction, how could you possibly not be moved? I carefully recalled my life with Khloe before freshman year, a tearful smile on my face. But that girl wasn't mine anymore. My girl disappeared in our sophomore year, the year she met Connor. The night felt even colder now. I mumbled aloud, "System, can you talk to me for a bit?" But there was no response. Had even the system given up on me? Just then, I heard a key in the lock outside my bedroom door. I knew it had to be Khloe. She came into the bedroom, knocking softly. "Ethan, I'm coming in." I wanted to pretend I was asleep, but Khloe seemed to see right through it. She stood silently by my bed for a moment, then sighed. "Ethan, I know you're not asleep. I'm sorry. I'll tell everyone it was my fault, but Ethan, you can't control who you love. I love Connor. That's a fact I can't change. Staying with you would only make us both more miserable." I wanted to pretend I couldn't hear her, but my pride wouldn't let me. I sat up and looked calmly at the weary woman before me. "Khloe, the Khloe that was mine died a long time ago. Just go. Don't ever let me see you again." She closed her eyes in pain, her voice trembling. "Okay." I watched as she left the room and quietly packed her things, a tear sliding down her cheek. I remember the day we graduated from high school. I'd excitedly asked Khloe to watch the sunrise with me. We got there early before anyone else. I held her hand, full of anticipation, but she was distracted. Soon, the sun peaked over the horizon in a golden blaze, and everything felt perfect. I turned happily to say something to Khloe, but before I could speak, I saw she was on the phone. When she hung up, she told me anxiously, "Ethan, Connor got hit by a scooter." I have to go check on him. You be careful, okay? And with that, she was gone, rushing off without a second glance. She left me standing there alone, stunned. The sunlight that day felt colder than ice. Then I remember my 22nd birthday. I was so excited because I still remembered her promise to spend every birthday with me. But the person who made that solemn promise, my official girlfriend, never showed up at our place. Not all day, not all night, not even in the early hours of the morning. I called her over 20 times. She didn't answer once. That night, I sat alone and slowly ate the cold birthday dinner I had prepared. It wasn't until the next day that she finally called, full of apologies. She told me Connor had gotten into some trouble and she'd rushed over to help, so she'd miss my calls. I asked her numbly, "Do you know what yesterday was?" Her voice on the other end faltered, followed by a long silence. I let out a hollow laugh and quietly ended the call. Do you know what it feels like to watch the person you love fall for someone else? Step by step, I lived it every single day, starting from sophomore year. Sophomore year, a year after Khloe and I started dating, and a year after I started dreading the hero's inevitable arrival. As fate would have it, the hero arrived. He was so cool and handsome, with a tall, straight posture, a striking face, and a wealthy family. Everything about him was impressive. I looked at Khloe, believing she wasn't the type to fall in love at first sight. But I saw it in my girlfriend's eyes, a flash of admiration. My heart sank. Sometimes a guy's sixth sense is dead on. I saw a new light in Khloe's eyes, and it was shining for another guy. But I still trusted her. I trusted the character of the girl I'd known my whole life. She would never cheat on me. But as luck would have it, she and Connor became desk mates. Desk mates. Such a sweet word from your school days. But for me, it just brought a wave of panic. At first, I thought my faith in her was justified. Aside from necessary exchanges, Khloe barely spoke to Connor. She still cared about me. I was smug, naively believing my charm could overcome the hero's plot armor and protect our relationship. But it didn't take long for me to realize how wrong I was. The same girl who seemed so indifferent to Connor, who got impatient if a conversation with him lasted more than a few sentences, was the first one to sprint to the nurse's office when he took a fall during a game. Her face a mask of anxiety, her steps so rushed she bumped right into me without even noticing, and he'd only scraped his knee. My mind went completely blank. Khloe explained later that it was an emergency. But even now, I still have nightmares about that moment, about the look of impatience in her eyes as she brushed past me. Things were changing. I should have known. The hero is the hero, the chosen one, an irresistible force of nature. People in our class started teasing them relentlessly. Connor would frown and tell them to stop, but I saw the faint smile in his eyes that only encouraged them more. Finally, Khloe slammed her hand on her desk, shocking everyone into silence. She scanned the room and said coolly, "I have a boyfriend." Ethan is laughable now, but in that moment, I actually thought she was defending me, that she cared. Seeing everyone's shocked faces and the sour look on Connor's, I felt a surge of happiness. I thought I'd won. From that day on, some of the more playful girls started teasingly calling me the boyfriend. I didn't correct them. I just accepted it with a goofy smile. Khloe still hung out with me after school, but I could sense a change. She seemed distracted. She'd smile at me, but her eyes were somewhere else. I felt her slipping away, so I tried desperately to chase after her to close the distance. But while I was trying so hard, I realized that Connor didn't have to do anything at all to be welcomed in her world. Her best friends, kids I'd grown up with, suddenly started revolving around him. They took him everywhere, even though he'd done nothing to earn their friendship. Even our dates for 2 turned into outings for 5, with him and her other friends tagging along. I couldn't find any romance in it. But Connor would always be there smiling, saying his parents were strict and he'd never been to places like this before, thanking us for bringing him. That just made everyone feel sorrier for him, and they insisted on including him in everything. Gradually, it felt like they all shared secrets they couldn't tell me. These are my friends too, people I'd known my whole life. Even Khloe never objected to Connor always being there. That feeling of helplessness, the feeling that I was losing everything. I don't want to relive it. Khloe left. She packed all her things and was gone decisively without leaving me a single thing to hold on to. I looked at the now empty room and sank onto the sofa. Defeated, I covered my eyes as traitorous tears began to fall again. I had sworn to myself that a real man wouldn't cry over this woman ever again. The system's chipper voice piped up again. "Hey, I'm back. I was gone for like 5 minutes. What happened to you?" I ignored it. "Stop crying. Stop crying. I have good news for you." The system sounded excited. I asked in a muffled voice, "What good news?" "Your mission is complete." My feelings were complicated. I didn't feel happy at all. I replied flatly. "Hey, why are you so lukewarm about this?" the system asked. "Mission complete means you can go home and you get your wish to be a multimillionaire. You're still not over the heroin, are you?" The system had hit the nail on the head, and I had no intention of answering. I was exhausted. "Just give me some time." I told the system, "Let me sort things out here, and then I'll give you my answer." The system went quiet for a moment. Then it cautiously advised, "Don't keep pining for the heroine. She and the hero are tied to the fate of this entire world. They are destined to be together." I really didn't want to hear it anymore. So I gave the system a non-committal answer, went to my room, and buried my head under the covers to sleep. I woke up early the next day. My phone had blown up with messages. I saw a message from one of my good friends here. "Ethan, what's going on?" I heard from Khloe's side that she and Connor are getting engaged at the end of the month. Even though I had braced myself, my heart still felt a sharp, stabbing pain. A lot of other friends were asking what happened. I replied to each of them, just saying we'd had an amicable breakup a while ago. Some were indignant on my behalf. Others were glad to see it happen. But that core group of friends, the ones I'd grown up with, not a single one of them asked how I was doing. They were Connor's friends now, not Ethan's. They were too busy cheering for Khloe and Connor's union to remember me, forgotten in a corner. It's fine, I told myself. It's just one girl." I stared into space, my hand clutching my phone. In high school, I had worked my ass off to get into the same college as her, Ohio State, only to find out that fate always favors the hero. He got in effortlessly. By then, I could clearly see his feelings for Khloe. But both he and Khloe were deliberately holding back because they both knew I was standing in the middle, the biggest obstacle. Even though Khloe hadn't broken up with me, she was growing visibly colder and more distant. She no longer asked me out, no longer shared her favorite snacks with me, and never suggested we go see fireworks at night anymore. We both knew we couldn't go back to the way things were, but neither of us wanted to be the one to say it. Connor's feelings for her were growing more intense, and I could see Khloe's own painful struggle. That's why yesterday, I had actually planned to talk to her to end things myself. I just never imagined she couldn't wait even a second longer. Someone must have told her Connor was planning to go abroad, and she panicked, throwing everything aside to remove the one obstacle between them. I was just cannon fodder, a witness to their great love story. I pulled myself together, cleaned the house, and threw out everything that had anything to do with Khloe. I knew it was time for a clean break. I terminated the lease, got in my car, and drove out of Columbus without telling a soul. I came into this world with a clean slate, and I wanted to leave it the same way. I drove back to where it all began, my hometown of Dublin, to my family's house next door to Khloe's. Our families had always been close. Khloe's mom saw me, and her face lit up. "Ethan, what are you doing back here? Where's that silly girl of mine, Khloe? Isn't she with you?" Mrs. Davis knew Khloe and I were together, but for some reason, Khloe had never told her about Connor. Maybe she didn't want her mom to know until she was sure how her story would end. I managed a faint smile, deciding a white lie was the kindest option. "Mrs. Davis, Khloe's busy with work. I just came back to grab a few things." "Oh, okay then. Go on ahead." She beamed at me. I could tell she'd always been fond of me. My nose stung, and I quickly turned to go into my own house. My mom and dad were surprised and happy to see me. "Ethan, what are you doing home?" Looking at my parents, who worried so much about me, I couldn't help but love them, even if I knew they were just characters in a book. I just smiled and gave them the same excuse, then hurried upstairs before they could see something was wrong. Downstairs, my parents gave me a strange look, but didn't press it, happily starting to make dinner for me. My eyes burned as I opened my bedroom door. I saw the framed photo of me and Khloe on my desk, the jar of paper stars she'd folded for me. Looking at all these things connected to her, I felt like something inside me had withered and died. I gathered it all, and fighting back the pain, I threw every last thing into the trash. But there was too much. It wouldn't all fit in the trash can. When had Khloe become such a huge part of my life? The system remained quiet in my mind, not disturbing me. After a long while, my parents called me down for dinner. I called back that I was coming, but didn't move right away. I stared blankly at the ceiling and told the system I'd made my decision. I don't have any other requests. I want to stay here, but I want to forget everything about Khloe. The system was surprised. It didn't understand why I would choose to stay here instead of returning to my own world. I managed a stiff smile. You don't know. I'm an orphan. The system went silent. I was an orphan. What did I have to go back to in the real world? I love my parents here. I was willing to stay lost in this dream as long as Khloe was no longer a part of it. After a moment, the system asked cautiously, "Are you sure?" To make the story work, the memory loss process might be very painful. I nodded. As long as I could forget her and start over, I was willing to endure any amount of pain. The system made a static sound and told me that by the end of the night, I would forget Khloe completely. I went downstairs, and seeing my parents' smiling faces and smelling the aroma of dinner, I felt a sense of relief and even anticipation. I didn't want to live for the heroine anymore. This might be her and Connor's world, but to my parents, I was their whole world. Forgetting her and starting over, that was the best reward I could ask for. I just never expected that the system wasn't lying. Losing my memories was genuinely agonizing. After dinner, I went for a walk. Seeing the cars speeding towards me, I smiled faintly. My own life was about to begin. I groggily opened my eyes, my head splitting with pain. What's going on? I was in a sterile white hospital room, and my mother was asleep, slumped over the side of my bed. "You're awake," the system's excited voice shouted in my head. Why am I in a hospital? And my head hurts so much. I grumbled, wincing in pain, unable to move my body easily. "You forgot," the system said. "Your mission was completed. You told me your wish was to stay in this world and for it to become a real world." Did I say that? My head was foggy, but I figured the system wouldn't lie to me. Looking at my mother sleeping so fitfully, I fell silent. I was an orphan. Even if I had the choice again, I'd still choose to stay here. Thinking about it that way, what the system said made sense. But why am I in a hospital? You tell me. You were in such a good mood after completing the mission that you went out for a walk and a car came out of nowhere. If it wasn't for me, you'd be dead. The system sounded huffy, but I could tell it was worried about me. How did I get hit by a car? That wasn't supposed to be in the script. I was suspicious. Something felt off. I told you your wish was for this to become a real world. So after your mission was done, that's what it became. It's not a book anymore. In the real world, there are no main characters. Everyone is just a normal person, which means you can have accidents just like in real life. Hearing that this was no longer a book world made me feel incredibly happy for some reason, like a long-suppressed emotion was finally bursting free. Just then, the noise I made woke my mother. She opened her eyes and glanced at me out of habit, then realized I was awake and excitedly called my name. "Ethan, you're awake." Her hands were trembling, her eyes filled with tears. "My son, I knew you'd wake up." My mother had always been a gentle, beautiful woman, but now I could see streaks of gray in her hair. My heart ached. I knew I was the cause of her worry. I had never thought of them as fictional characters. Their love for me was real and heartfelt. They were my parents. Just then, the door to the room opened. My father, holding a thermos, and a few people behind him froze in the doorway. My father reacted first. The thermos clattered to the floor as he rushed to my bedside, staring at me intently, as if afraid his eyes were deceiving him. After a moment, a tearful smile broke across his haggard face. He stroked my head with his rough hand. I knew my boy was tough. I knew you'd be okay. Tears streamed down my face. I was only then realizing that while the car accident felt like just a long nap to me, for my parents, They had been facing the possibility that their only son might never wake up. The people who had been behind my father now came over to my bed. I looked closer and saw they were some of my old classmates, friends I'd grown up with. They must have planned to visit me together. But for some reason, looking at their faces made me feel a sense of resistance. I remembered the hero, Connor, and I guess it was because they had abandoned me, their childhood friend, to get close to him. But why had they all suddenly become so close to Connor? I couldn't remember a single thing about it. And whenever I tried, my head would throb with pain. So I stopped trying to think about it and just waited to see why they were here. The group of them kept looking at each other as if they wanted to say something but didn't know how. Seeing this, my mother lovingly patted my head and led my father out of the room to give us some privacy. Then, one of them stepped forward. Her name was Emily, the girl I had known the longest out of all of them. Her face was red as she came to my bedside, and looking down at the floor, she whispered, "I'm sorry." I was confused. Was she apologizing just for not staying friends with me? That didn't seem like something you'd need to apologize for. Why are you apologizing to me? She looked up, surprised, and the others exchanged confused glances. Because of Khloe and Connor. I'm apologizing for everything that happened before. I frowned, even more confused. Who's Khloe? And why would you be apologizing to me about her and Connor? It's selective amnesia, a side effect of the accident. It's not something that can be controlled. The doctor explained helplessly to my parents and the others, pushing his glasses up his nose. His words stunned everyone. My parents looked at me with a complicated expression, and I couldn't tell if my old friends looked relieved or disappointed. Emily stammered, You really don't remember Khloe?" I nodded, then mentally asked the system, "What's going on? Did I forget something?" The system replied casually, "Khloe is the heroine. You got her together with the hero. Remember? Looks like you forgot. Oh well, the mission's over anyway, so it's fine if you've forgotten." I still had some doubts, but I didn't dwell on it. I had no interest in thinking about a girl who already had a boyfriend. The doctor said I needed to rest, so my visitors left, looking completely dejected, as if they'd been dealt a heavy blow. Why couldn't I have forgotten them instead? They weren't great people. My mother looked at me cautiously. "Ethan, if you don't remember, that's okay. She wasn't anyone important." My father quickly agreed. "Exactly. The most important thing is for you to get better." Hearing my parents say that put my mind at ease. It seemed this Khloe person really wasn't important to me. And besides, I didn't want any entanglement with the story's heroine. So I rested peacefully in the hospital, listening to the system's chatter from time to time. But sometimes I had the distinct feeling that someone was watching me, like right now. I glanced quickly towards the window, but I only caught a glimpse of a small figure disappearing from view. I frowned. That was creepy. Was it some kind of stalker? I needed to get out of this hospital and go home. When I told my parents, they exchanged a look but didn't say much. They just told me to focus on getting better so we could go home. So I spent my days bored in bed, occasionally getting up to walk around with my mother's help. After more than a month, I could finally move normally again. Though the doctor said no more strenuous exercise and no overexerting my brain, I didn't think it was a big deal. I knew my own limits. I wasn't exactly a genius, so I probably wouldn't be overexerting my brain much anyway. But my parents' eyes welled up when they heard the doctor's prognosis. Finally, I was able to go home. I was lounging in bed, scrolling through my phone when I saw a funny video. "Hey, system, you have to see this. It's hilarious," I thought, full of excitement. But the system didn't chirp back as usual. There was a long silence. For some reason, I felt a pang of panic. I called out for the system again. "I'm here." Its voice was muffled and distant. "What's wrong?" I sat bolt upright in bed. "I have to go," the system said. The words came out after a long pause. "Go where?" "You're my system, aren't you? Where are you going?" I was getting frantic, a terrible feeling rising in my chest. I knew the system was just a consciousness meant to help me complete my mission. But I'd come to see it as my best friend. We had stumbled through all of this together. "The mission is complete. I have to go now." Its voice wasn't its usual cheerful self. It sounded almost hoarse. A wave of pure panic washed over me. "Who says my mission is complete?" If you leave, I'll turn into the villain. I'll break up the hero and heroine. The system didn't reply, but I could clearly feel something inside my head beginning to fade away. Don't go, I pleaded. I shouted it out loud, flailing as if I could physically stop it. But how do you stop a disembodied consciousness? I'm leaving. You have to live a good life in this world. Its voice grew fainter, and I thought I could hear it sniffling. It used to sniffle like that when we watched sad movies together. I didn't know how to make it stay. I could only feel helplessly as the presence that had made a home in my mind faded away. Bit by bit, I sank to the floor, dazed and empty. You know, you rascal, I was really fond of you. The system's last words faded slowly, and then its presence was gone completely. The willful entity that brought me to this world, the chattering friend who had been with me the whole time, had vanished from Ethan Miller's world forever. I was in a funk for a long time after the system left. My parents noticed something was wrong and asked me, with tear-filled eyes, if I had remembered something. I looked up blankly, having no idea what they were talking about. From their vague and hesitant words, I managed to piece together a fragmented version of the truth. I had once been with the heroine, and we had been deeply in love, but she later fell for Connor and cheated on me. It was a classic cheesy romance plot. Then one day, a good friend of mine sent me a message. He said Khloe and Connor had broken up. Apparently, after being so madly in love when they couldn't be together, they fought constantly once they became a notoriously miserable couple. He even said that some of Khloe's best friends, my old friends, had secretly asked him to pass on an apology to me, saying they had misjudged Connor and Dee were sorry. My friend just scoffed and refused to be their messenger. He told me mockingly, back then, when they were still in school, they didn't know about Connor's rich boy attitude. They thought he was a great guy. Now that everyone's an adult, they're getting a taste of his chauvinism and all the other girls he keeps on the side. It's more than they can handle. He's always demanding to check Khloe's phone, but he's got a whole roster of his own female friends and acts like he's completely justified. Who could put up with that? My friend said he was thrilled that it was karma that those two had been disgusting from the start, but I couldn't care less about Khloe and Connor's relationship drama. I didn't want to waste any energy on strangers, and I certainly had no intention of going back to being the heroine's devoted puppy. I was determined to have my own new life. The system would have wanted that for me. So, I pulled myself out of my slump and started to face life with a positive attitude. But every now and then, I still felt like someone was following me. They never did anything, just quietly trailed behind me. But whenever I stopped to try and see who it was, they would quickly run away as if they didn't want me to see them. I had a pretty good idea who it was, and I didn't care if she was motivated by guilt or not. To me, that person was a stranger from past life. Life had to go on. But slowly, I discovered something terrifying. I was forgetting. Yes, I was forgetting everything. Forgetting about the system, about who I used to be. It felt like a hand was slowly pulling out my old memories. I couldn't even remember how I got to this world anymore. My memory now told me that I was from this world, that I was my parents' son. To stop myself from forgetting completely, I quickly wrote down everything I could still remember in a notebook. In it, I wrote about a noisy system, a boy who once had a dream, and the hero and heroine of a novel. I put the notebook in the drawer with my most important possessions and made myself look at it every day as a reminder. But before long, I felt a nagging confusion. I felt like I'd forgotten something important. But what was it? I couldn't remember, no matter how hard I tried. Just then, I heard my parents calling me for dinner from downstairs. "Ethan, hurry and eat. Your friend Taylor is here for dinner today." Coming. I went downstairs with a smile. Taylor was here. She was my childhood friend, my best friend, the girl I grew up with. When I got downstairs, Taylor was already at the table, making a funny face at me. I gave her a helpless smile and happily sat down to eat with her. After dinner, Taylor and I went for a walk, and she was making her usual goofy faces to make me laugh. A woman was walking towards us, a stranger I didn't recognize. She was beautiful, but she looked haggard and thin. For some reason, she was staring right at me, her eyes filled with an inexplicable sadness. I wasn't sure if I should say hello. Just then, Taylor grabbed my arm and pulled me forward. I felt an urge to look back. The sadness that seemed to be overflowing from her eyes was hard to ignore, but Taylor leaned in and whispered in my ear, "That woman definitely just got her heart broken. Bad luck to stare. Let's go." Her tug pulled my attention away, and I didn't look back, my mind no longer on the strange woman. The evening breeze was pleasant. I walked on humming a little tune. Life always moves forward, and the dusty notebook in my drawer probably wouldn't blame Ethan because the wish of the boy in its pages had already come true. Extra Khloe's story. The moment I heard Ethan was in a car accident, I woke up. Every single memory of my youth with Ethan came flooding back into my mind, an overwhelming tide of emotion that nearly drowned me. The people around me didn't know what was wrong. Connor looked at me cautiously and asked if I wanted to go to the hospital with him to see Ethan. I caught my breath, looked at him and the clueless people around us, and knew that it was all over. That's right, I was back. But everything was over, and it all stemmed from this damned book world. Growing up next door to Ethan, through all the turmoil of our teenage years, he had become an indispensable part of my life. Freshman year, I couldn't wait to confess my feelings. The moment the boy I loved nodded, I was overcome with an indescribable joy. He was my childhood sweetheart, and I was sure he was the one I would spend my life with. Every moment we shared growing up, all the laughter was etched into my very soul. But soon after Connor transferred to our class, I realized something was wrong. The first time I saw him, I felt an inexplicable pull, an admiration I didn't think much of at the time. Later, we became desk mates, and I still thought nothing of it. But then, when Connor fell during gym class, it was like my body and mind were no longer my own. By the time I snapped out of it, I saw the devastated look on Ethan's face. I didn't know how to comfort him because I didn't even know what was happening to me. My own father had abandoned my mother. I despised cheaters. There was no way I would ever betray someone and fall for someone else. Ethan wasn't the only one in pain during that time, and soon I found out why. Something called a system appeared in my mind. It coldly informed me that I was living in a world inside a book and that I and Connor were the hero and heroine. I thought it was absurd at first, but everything that had been happening forced me to believe it. Then the system delivered a devastating blow. If I didn't fall in love with Connor and let the plot unfold as it should, a being called the Prime God would erase Ethan from existence. I was stunned. I didn't know who this Prime God was or why our little world had attracted its attention. I pleaded with the system, begging it to save Ethan, to find some other way. I didn't want to fall in love with some stranger, and I refused to give up Ethan. After a long silence, the system came up with a plan. It said it would remove my consciousness, leaving behind only the empty shell of the original novel's heroine. This shell would continue the plot, deceiving the Prime God. Once the shell was successfully with the hero, the Prime God would lose interest. Then it would put me back. But it couldn't guarantee that when I returned, Ethan and I could be together. There were too many variables. Ethan might already be heartbroken, and I could never tell him the truth, or the Prime God would notice. There was no other way. For Ethan's safety, and for our love, I had to do it. But only now, awake and aware, do I realize how stupid I was. Ethan was kept in the dark. All he knew was that Khloe had fallen in love with Connor and abandoned him. So heartbroken, he chose to walk away. My younger self was too confident. I thought Ethan would wait for me, that I would eventually wake up. But that was just an empty promise. Who knew when I would wake up? Why should Ethan have to wait for someone whose heart was filled with another man? Thinking about what I'd done, about how my own friends had treated Ethan with such disdain, my heart clenched in pain. I was so selfish. If it had been Ethan, he would have chosen to disappear with me rather than accept this so-called sacrifice I made. But I still held on to a sliver of hope. I wanted to find him to explain everything. I was back now, and the world was no longer bound by script. Ignoring everyone's shocked stares, I rushed to the hospital. But when I saw his parents, who had aged so much, I couldn't bring myself to open the door. I was too ashamed. What right did I have to disturb their son's life again? So I asked our mutual friends to go see him instead. Once the world was off its tracks, their minds cleared too, and they were all consumed with guilt. but I never expected the news they brought back. Ethan had forgotten me. I stood there stunned, seeing the pity in their eyes. I knew it was my punishment. Ethan probably never wanted to remember Khloe again. I sank to the ground, devastated, feeling for the first time what it was like to suffocate. This must have been how I made Ethan feel over and over again. My friend sighed and helped me leave. That night when I saw Connor's distorted face, I just felt sick to my stomach. To think that a man who knowingly pursued a girl who was taken could be the hero of a story. I gave a sarcastic smile. I started secretly visiting the hospital to catch a glimpse of Ethan, and I used it to provoke Connor into breaking up with me. Connor and I argued every day. I couldn't be bothered to deal with him, and we broke up soon after. After the breakup, I went home clinging to hope. I started following Ethan secretly just to see him smile. It felt like I was watching him from another world. Then I saw someone named Taylor appear by his side. I knew who she really was, but I had no right to expose her. I could tell she didn't have romantic feelings for Ethan. She just cared for him deeply and wanted to protect him like an older sister. I was actually happy about it. After everything he'd been through, my Ethan still had someone willing to watch over him. Today I finally gathered the courage to walk past him head-on. I stared at him, seeing the rejection in his eyes as he and the person beside him walked away from me. They say young love is passionate and true, that it can move mountains. But no one ever told me that people don't just wait for you forever. Who can give me back the boy I loved? Extra, the system story. I'm a system. I actually have a name, or at least a designation, 720. It was assigned to me by the Prime God. From the moment I gained consciousness, I knew my mission. Know our mission. We are the tools the Prime God uses to maintain order in the various pocket worlds. The worlds I was assigned to were all book worlds. Whenever a world's plot begins to fracture, I have to bring in a transmigrator to fix it and get everything back on track. So, I've worked with a lot of transmigrators. Some of them were overconfident, thinking they were the chosen ones, the heroes of their new world, only to be completely outmaneuvered by the locals despite all their modern knowledge. Others were content to be side characters, only to accidentally stumble into becoming the center of the world. And then there were those who knew they shouldn't fall in love with certain people, but threw themselves in any way, like moths to a flame, always ending in tragedy. With the Prime God watching, they were never allowed to do as they pleased. Unsurprisingly, Ethan was one of those. But Ethan was different. To me, he was different. He was the first host I ever had who worried about me. To him, I wasn't just a coal machine, but a friend he could rely on and trust. He was also the first host who would quietly watch sad movies with me, even though he'd laugh at me for crying. He was the first one to worry if the Prime God would punish me. The first one to ask if I could eat. So many firsts. So, he was the first host I was truly fond of, my host watching over him. I felt like I had a friend to worry about. So, when I sensed the Prime God was about to move against him, I went straight to the heroine to come up with a plan. To be honest, I was selfish. The plan I proposed seemed like a clever deception, but it actually sacrificed the love between the heroine and Ethan. Having guided so many people, I have a deep understanding of the nature of love. It's selfish. When Ethan said he wanted to forget Khloe, I was happy because it meant he could finally start a new life. He never actually wished for this world to become real. That was my doing. I wanted him to live in a real world free from the control of the plot. Even though the Prime God was no longer paying attention to this world, there was no guarantee the plot wouldn't try to snap back into place. So, I made a selfish decision. I decided to sever this world's connection to the Prime God, allowing it to break away and develop its own consciousness. The price was enormous, but I was willing to pay it. I knew I was about to disappear. I didn't want to hurt Ethan, so I lied and told him I had to go guide someone else. Seeing the look on his face, I felt a sharp pain, even without a heart. But I didn't disappear. The world's own consciousness protected me, merging with me completely. It's no exaggeration to say that I am now the guardian of this world. Of course, I won't interfere. I'll just silently watch over this world and let it grow on its own. But out of a little bit of selfishness, I became Taylor, Ethan's childhood friend. I think I'll be content just being able to watch over the boy I've grown so fond of. I swear in this world of love and loss, I will do everything in my power to make sure you have a peaceful and happy life.